I will be retired in 1 or 2 years. So in fact, the idea was to sum up my experience about teaching LaTeX. So I will explain that. Some particular points for computer science students, other students, how I evaluated students when that was relevant. So, in fact, all my classes about LaTeX were practical. That is, there were lab class, possibly after lectures with demonstrations. In fact, the first class was in the Faculty of Letters for students of digital edition. This diploma no longer exists in my university. That was in around 26. Other classes are in Faculty of Science. Our computer science students still in use for mathematical students and physics and chemistry students. In fact, for the students, that depends. That is a special section with a special enhancement in some additional topics. Depending of numbers, they are grouped for LaTeX classes or separated. For example, 2 years ago, they were separated because they were 20 plus 15. This year, in finishing, this year there were 28 students in one group. So, in addition, but that was quite informal, I helped students for writing medical thesis, and at the end of a nurse school for final dissertation. And what I mean by what I was asked, that is, I was quite free to put myself the program. But at each time, I have a precise requirement on some point I have to emphasize. So, for example, for students in science, prepare them to write document by several people. That is, some parts written by different students and assembling the whole in a second step. For example, in Faculty of Letters, I had to emphasize multilingual aspect. That is, encoding commands for a Bible package. At this time, the polyglossia was unknown. Of course, I was asked to introduce the math mode for math students and physics science students. And special attention to bibliography management for digital edition on physics, because the students were asked to manage an important bibliography. That is, not only show them how we use BibTeX, LaTeX, and others, but how to manage important references, for example, with JabRef. So, about bibliography. Maybe you think that in France, things are standardized. No, no. Look there. For most scientific documents, the bibliography is sorted alphabetically. References might be labeled by numbers or alphabetic keys, but the bibliography itself is alphabetically sorted. But that's not true for PhD in medicine. The order needed is the order of first citation in a document. In fact, many people are militating for this convention to be changed because that's nonsense. If you change your text, this change can induce the order in the bibliography. So, in fact, alphabetically sorted for most scientific documents, most scientific, that is mathematics, chemistry, computer science, biology, physiology. But for physics, the bibliography are given as footnote in the chapters. If you are in physics, that is, there are both footnote and the global bibliography. If you consider nurse dissertation, no global bibliography, just footnote on the fly. So, that is for bibliography that is specific to a particular public. What about implementation? In France, Bible and LaTeX are very deeply used in letter and human sciences. For example, psychology, philosophy, okay. What about science? The problem is not refusing LaTeX, but in some most conferences, there is still automatic tools with BibTeX. That is, when you submit, you put a text file, a bib file, and automatically PDF LaTeX and bib LaTeX were run. It is impossible to use Bible. So, for tools too, that is specific to some public. Well, and I adapt for some specialized packages, for example, for physics and chemistry, and for recent classes, I also talk about the Beamer package. So, in fact, my classes was in one shot, started from scratch, except for this year, that is terminating. Because, in fact, in France, every 4 or 5 years, there is a reorganization of teaching units monitored by the state. So, in fact, last year, this reorganization moved my unit from the first year to the second. So, this year I had students I already know, and I didn't want them to attend the same courses. So that was advanced feature this year for computer science students. So, what I noticed, generally for any kind of public, asking students for typing new text is not a good technique, because as here, they will have to type long text, and long text by length and time spent to first version, second version, and so on. In fact, if you begin from scratch, you can ask students type a document class, use package, but many will do some typing mistakes. You will spend a considerable amount of time, and that will be very, very counterproductive. No, the best technique is to provide them a middle-sized text. For example, some section, and they can compile it, then can using some variants, for example, 1 colon, 2 colon, changing the size of character, but at the beginning, the best technique is to emphasize this possibility of changing because of a new requirement, because of new version, or what other problem. So, for example, maybe you will add an index for person name. Maybe not. So the best technique is to use a command for person name and rewrite this command at each time. Or, for example, some category of words that will be typeset using some effects. Italicized characters or boldface font. So, in fact, even also that is something subject to change. Early, also introduce cross-references. Commands label and ref. The advantage to start from a quite long text, it's quite easy to add a small section, so some numbering of section changes, and students can observe that. So, about computer science students. In France, they practice languages like Java or C++. Okay? That is, they are used to modern techniques. That is, lexical analysis and syntactic analysis. If you are not familiar with programming language, that's analogous to separating a text into successive words, that is lexical analysis, and checking that a sentence is correctly built from a grammar point of view. But in fact, that are modern techniques. That was not always the case. For example, in TeX, there is no lexical and syntactic analysis. The analyzer is just encompassed. As another example, if expressions in TeX are processed dynamically, that's very different to what is done presently for modern languages. For modern languages, that is, a kind of tree is pictured when the text is analyzed. From my point of view, that may be interesting for computer science to see this difference. And another very deep difference. That is very static. That is, you don't have dynamic allocation. If you are not familiar with this notion, that means the resources we use for the memory are finite and not extensible. Using dynamic allocation is very, very common for modern languages. Here also, there is a rich comparison with TeX technique and nowadays techniques. And in fact, as students can see, TeX is a very efficient program, but let us be honest, that's a kind of legacy program, because no one has to change it. That's the truth. So, in fact, in some units, students are required to write good programs. But for them, writing good programs is writing like the teacher. That's quite imprecise. But showing them a legacy program is very, very a good thing for them. So hooks could have been put as another example, communication with another language or a tool. That's also a good thing for them because given the curriculum that is in first year or second one, that is the first time for the students to meet a couple of languages, that is Lua and TeX. The year after, they will learn Ruby plus Java. But at this time, it's a first meeting with completing languages. And why? That is programming jobs for Lua and typesetting job for TeX. So, in fact, I also introduced them to the graphic package and its advanced option and TeX. I spent some hours this year, and for non-computer science students, pictures are given, but for electrical circuits for physics students. For all students, last year, I introduced a package allowing processing of Excel file. That is interesting, for example, if they have to, for example, for an activity report. So, for example, or for measurement result. Let us not forget that for physics of chemistry students, many data are the result of experiment and the specific entered as Excel file. So that depends. Some units were free, not really need of an examination, and some I had to organize a classical examination. Sometimes that was a lab class with a document to reproduce for beginners. This year for advanced students, that is computer science for the second year consecutively, I give them a mini project. I will translate this mini project in the complete article for TUG 2025. In fact, that is collaborative work about an imaginary company selling physics formulas. So some students have to typeset many complicated formulas in physics. Another group has to process accounts, that is for the imaginary society, give them as tabular and in pictures with stickers, that is a diagram with cheese. And the third group had to process the list of employees and give the average age of employees. In fact, the list were students themselves, admin, in order for the average ages to increase. And in fact, they have one mini project. That is, the third part had to be assembled and processed. That was funny. I was told that students very, very enjoy this project. That will be one shot because next year I will have second year but beginners. So, in fact, from my point of view, if you teach LaTeX, that is something quite philosophical. That is showing how to process to be subject to change. Avoiding information redundancy, for example, by defining new commands. For example, package interfacing Excel go in this direction. That is, you don't have to build a text version of Excel as if it was the case many, many years ago. And getting high quality output text. What's this question mark? No, in fact, I think That's relative. When I was a student, that was at the beginning of the 80s. Books were typeset nicely. That was the time of the first edition of Donald Knuth's book that was butchered. And in fact, when the teachers gave us some documents, they were roughly typeset with typewriter. Now, modern students don't know this situation. They are given by me and other teachers documents with PDF clearly processed with LaTeX. So, somewhat they get used to high quality output text. And now, if you consider document, you have documents which not very high quality, but not very low either. That is, I think the average quality has increased. So, in addition, if you consider LaTeX, many years ago, 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago, some knowledge in typography were required in order to get something correct. But it's not always the case now. If you write in French, in German, about Hindi, I don't know. But in some languages, package like Babel, Polyglossia, and some improvement of packages, you can get high quality text. But the challenge is to get maintainable text. If you have questions,
any questions for Jean-Michel?
Thank you for the session. I got some pointers from your session which I can implement at our own ashram. I'm forming a team of students and teaching them. I'm forming a team of students and teaching them LaTeX actually. So I got some good inputs from your session. Thank you.
Hi, Jean-Michel. Thank you for the talk. Do you have any insight on how the students then really use it after you gave your lecture? So, do you have converts in your group?
Oh, there was a question, right? Yeah. Oh, can you repeat the question once again?
Oh, so my question was, are the students sufficiently converted after yours to keep using LaTeX? Do you test that in any way, or that they abandon it again?
Yes, I think that is the best. Students get used to best LaTeX. For example, I was often asked for advice about CV resume. So I can think that students were attracted by LaTeX.
Yes, Boris?
Well, I just want to comment that I really like the idea of mini projects at the end of the courses. And just a personal anecdote, some of my students had really good knowledge of LaTeX. I asked them why, and they answered, well, our previous professor wanted us to write for him the course notes, and after some work with him, we were really proficient. So anything which they do not as a, anything real that they do, anything big project is probably the best way to teach them practical knowledge.
There was no question, right? Okay.
In fact, I think the project is very accurate for that. And even there is a graded lab class that is like a project since they can get access to internet. That is, I teach students to use LaTeX, but also to use its documentation.
Thank you. Okay, that was the talk. We are going to lunch now. Thank you, Jean-Michel.